generation of the year 2-1. A generation that projects unity.
People try to put us down, talking about my generation, just because we get around. Talking about my generation, things they do look awful cool. Talking about my generation, they ain't got the red, green and gold. Talking about my generation, talk about my generation, generation, your generation, generation. Why don't you all feel? Talking about my generation, don't try to dig what we all say. Talking about my generation, I'm not trying to cause a big sensation. Talking about my generation, just talking about my generation. Talking about my generation, I'm talking about my generation. Generation, this generation, generation, my generation, generation, this generation, generation. I'm not trying to cause a big sensation about my generation, just talking about my generation. Talking about my generation, I'm not trying to cause a big sensation. Talking about my generation, talking about my generation. Talking about my generation, talk about my generation. New generation, your generation, generation, our generation, 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 Lord the creation, generation, good vibration, generation. Talk about my generation, talk about my generation, generation.
Many people never like it, so we bring the show and style show. We move so kinda different and we move so kinda wild, yo. We are the new generation, gonna be around for more than a while. Generation.
Why don't you all feel? Talking about my generation, don't try to dig what we all say. Talking about my generation, I'm not trying to cause a big sensation. Just talking about my generation. Talking about my generation. Talk about my generation. Generation, our generation. Generation, next generation. Generation, our generation. Generation, build a better nation. Generation, it's a good vibration. Generation, lot of creation. Generation, we got to build this nation. Generation,
That generation that produces peace.
It is not dying. It is not dying. Lay down all thoughts, surrender to the void. It is shining, shining. Yet you may see the meaning of freedom. It is pain, pain. Love is all and love is everyone. It is no. Ain't gonna look around. So play the game existence to the end of the beginning, of the beginning, of the beginning.